Greetings, do-it-yourselfers and some professionals out there too. Of course, I always really enjoy your participation in the channel and always getting that perspective that I may not be able to offer as do-it-yourselfer. And we may need that in this video because we have a mystery to solve. Always one of the most exciting things we do on this channel, in my opinion, is solving that mystery where nobody else can figure out what's wrong, but using our scientific diagnostic approach, we will have a very good chance at figuring this out, although I will admit, as many of you guys know, I have been playing with this car already, and I am not having a lot of traction right now. I have an idea of what I believe is wrong, but let's catch you up with what's going on here so this will all make sense. We have here a 2012 Honda Odyssey where the owners have been trying for over 3 years to get this car fixed. The issue with the car, there is, as the owner put it, it doesn't run the way it should. It has funny idle. It sometimes varies the idle speeds. It is slow to respond on the accelerator, some hesitation. It seems to lack power. There is no check engine light. Now, the owner said that in the past there has been check engine light on, but they've taken it to like 5 different shops. And of course, the check engine light gets reset each time when they fire the parts cannon at it, which is exactly what's been happening for this thing. And they have had thousands of dollars of parts, thousands of dollars. You name it, that part probably was installed in here. So the first thing they did when they started having the issue is they took it to a dealer. The Honda dealer could find nothing abnormal with the car, so they offered to just replace the spark plugs for whatever they charge on that. The owner accepted, spark plugs were replaced, no change in the issue. Owner complains about it, and the dealer says, well, what we'll do is we'll take whatever you spent towards the spark plug replacement, and we will put that towards a fuel injection service or something, whatever that means. I guess they clean the fuel injectors or whatever. They go ahead and do that, and it still does not fix the problem. Fed up with the dealer, they decide to go to a independent local shop where they diagnosed a fuel pump as the problem. You will soon see how ridiculous that call is because the engine you're going to see is running rich. So they replace the fuel pump. Of course, that doesn't fix it. They then say that the car needs new fuel injectors. The pump was bad because the injectors were clogged. You know the story. So they replace fuel injectors. That doesn't fix it either. Disgusted with that shop, they go to another independent shop who notices that the car has, at the time, something like 205,000 miles. Obviously, mileage is completely irrelevant except for the fact that the timing belt had not been done in quite some time. They recommended that the car needs a timing belt anyway. There's that mantra from the parts changers. It needed it anyway. Well, I changed the O2 sensors and that didn't fix it. But you know what? It needed them anyway. So they go ahead and replace the timing belt. I can tell you, I remember there being a sticker right there on the engine cover for a new timing belt. They were hoping the timing belt would, of course, fix whatever the issue is. And if not, nothing lost. Needed it anyway. Well, the timing belt didn't fix it. They then replaced ignition coils. At some point, ignition coils, I know, were replaced. They took it to another shop. The next shop finally is getting a little smarter, at least, and they suspect an evap problem, but they don't diagnose it. They just replace the purge solenoid and the canister. Why would you replace both of those? That makes absolutely no sense. Anyway, they at least they recognized that there was a rich condition like I did, and replaced the purge solenoid. That didn't fix it. They then replaced the EGR valve. That didn't fix it. And they replaced something else. Oh, oxygen sensors were replaced, I think, by the second shop. Of course, oxygen sensors were replaced. Hey, needs it anyway. Gosh, I cannot even think of all the stuff that has been replaced on this car. Unfortunately, owners are not the best record keepers, so I don't have any records of anything. Obviously, I'm not interested in everything that was replaced. I am interested in any data that was acquired so that I can analyze this. And all that I can tell you is I just have a list of all these things that were replaced, and there will be others that will come to mind as we look at this, I can assure you. Well, the owners, after 3 years of this and thousands of dollars, finally gave up and just decided to live with it until somehow they found me. Because what do you do when you take the car to every automotive shop and the dealer and still can't get it fixed? You bring it to a do-it-yourselfer. At least that's what they decided to do. But not just any do-it-yourselfer, one that's going to use a scientific method to try to figure out this problem. And as I mentioned, hasn't worked out so well. I have actually spent already, as some of you guys know, hours diagnosing this vehicle. I can't find anything wrong, nothing wrong. But I have an idea of what's wrong. I believe, despite the fact that evidence does not support it, that there is some type of timing issue with this car. And while all of the timing data, this is a VTEC engine, so, oh, that was another one. Variable valve timing solenoids were replaced, of course. And I can tell you that I checked the VVT. We actually are going to be doing a video soon on variable valve timing diagnostics over on Schrodinger's Box Quantum Mechanics, my website. And I can tell you that it is not a VVT problem. However, remember, in variable valve timing, the reporting is done from the cam sensor and crank sensor positions. I believe the cam and crank sensor positions are correct. I just don't believe that the valve timing is correct. Maybe warm cam lobes, something like that. I actually, since then, have done some more research, and I actually have an even better idea. I've got some more evidence to go in this direction as of just a few days ago when I knew this car would come in. But we'll revisit some of the data and everything that'll be relevant. I don't want to go through everything all over again because that would just be hours, and I just don't have the time to do it. Otherwise, I actually would. I would love to walk you through every step. But also, we have videos for every single thing that we've tested, especially on Schrodinger's Box Quantum Mechanics, except for the variable valve timing. So I may walk you through that just real quick and show you that data. But I do believe this is a mechanical problem with this engine. You will see that the engine runs rich, and I do believe it is because of a timing issue of some sort. So that's where we're at now. Maybe I'm wrong about it. Again, no check engine light. I have never seen a check engine code for this thing. But my guess is that, as you will see, a P0172 and or P0173 would be the codes that I would assume caused previous check engine light. Fuel pressure regulator, I believe, also was replaced on the car as well, at least, again, making some kind of sense. But I can tell you I tested the fuel pressure regulator, and it works fine. Nothing shows out of ordinary with this car, except, of course, for the fuel trims. And the only thing that I can think that's causing that would be a mechanical issue. Well, let's start off by at least gathering some data and kind of reviewing some of the stuff, because I know you guys have a million ideas running through your mind here, and just want to make sure that you know that I did cover your ideas so that we don't overlook anything. So let's take a look at what we got. All right, it's always hard to hear on camera, but I can tell you the engine sounds great. It totally seems to be operating fine, but again, driving the car is more where the issue is, not so much the idle, but the driving of it. We can see right here we've got a sticker for the timing belt change that was fairly recent, about a year ago or so. And what I'm going to do is bring up my Autel MS909. As you guys are familiar, I just started a partnership with Autel where I'm helping them to create some video training content live on their tools. So I need to get some more involvement with this thing anyway. Let's go. So let's do this actually. I just want to show you the elephant in the room here and the direction that we're going. It's the only thing that I can find abnormal on the car. It'll be quicker if we just do this on OBD. Okay, and there you can see right there, the elephant in the room there, we're running rich. Now, this is at idle. This is actually going to run considerably more rich if we look at our total trims when I increase the RPMs. But as you can see, definitely running rich here. This is the only thing that I see wrong with this vehicle. Let's take a look at this when I increase RPM. All right, well, as you saw, the richness increased with load, and by increased, I mean the rich response on the fuel trims increased with load. So we definitely have rich condition here. Now, as it stands right now, I'm not too worried about it, but again, with that increase in load, you can see where we were flirting with MIL settings at some point there. All right. We're in generic mode right now, but we can look at some of the basic data here and address some of the things you're thinking. Obviously, we know that we're not going to have bad oxygen sensors just based on that. They were replaced anyway, needs it anyway. EGR, I think I mentioned the EGR valve was replaced. I also tested the EGR valve. There was no problem with the EGR. There was no EVAP issue. I tested EVAP system. I know a lot of you guys who are new maybe to this video are like, well, wait, you're not showing how to do any of those tests. We've covered in previous videos how to do all of these tests, and we especially walked through it over on my paid channel. We actually just recently did a rich condition diagnosis that turned out to be a leaking purge valve, actually. So we did the same thing here. Well, I did the same thing here previously when I saw this car, and I can tell you this is not an EVAP problem. We can see our APPs are normal, and that's all we have on the generic. Let's get out of here, and I'm going to go over to the actual specific module and see if we can get some variable valve timing data. And I believe, I think there was also a fuel pressure pit on here. Most of you guys I know are suspecting fuel pressure. Absolutely agreed. Let's get this loaded up. This is going to take me a while. I'll come back after I get this set up. All right, and again, my apologies. Again, this is an advanced do-it-yourselfer channel, so I anticipate most of you guys know how to do this stuff. If not, then you will have to review some of my previous videos, and we do walk you through very step-by-step on a lot of this. Trouble codes, you can see no trouble codes present, not even pending codes. Let's get to our live data. We can see, map sensor. I tested map sensor. I can tell you that the map sensor worked perfectly fine. Math, of course, that looks a little bit low right now, but do keep in mind we're in pounds per second rather than grams per second. Math is definitely not an issue. I wonder if they replaced the math on this. Oh, you know what? I can look right over. There's a new math on this car. They replaced the math sensor on this too. Oh boy, man. But it's definitely running rich and worse with engine load. There are other variables for that are mechanical, leaking valve seals, for example. However, you'll have evidence of that through the exhaust pipe with the unburned oil, and also in the cylinder on the spark plugs. There's usually evidence of that I found no evidence of in my previous inspection. So again, I'm not going to sit here and pull out spark plugs for you guys just to show that. You can take my word, I've spent hours looking for other obvious causes of a rich condition. Leaking valve guides is not going to be one of them. Really looking for some variable valve timing. EGR valve I tested. It's not there's our variable valve timing. So this shows our positions of our solenoids. Obviously all off now with it being in idle. What I really need is to show cam position. I'm not seeing it here. Well, that's kind of frustrating. EVAP is not an issue. EVAP definitely a variable for consideration, but that has been eliminated by me as well. We can see no misfires on misfire counter. Misfire cycle B. Okay, so this is just the misfire cycle. I believe that's going to count up to 4,000 and then reset. So that's not like counting misfires or anything on that. That's just the misfire count loop counting up to, I believe, 4,000. Let's see here. I would like to get some variable valve time position info. That's it. All right, well, let's get out of there, and we can probably do it from, well, probably not adjustment, but active tests. Wow, what's that? CKP pattern. We do not have a issue with crankshaft position sensor or anything like that. VTEC test is what I'm going to want, isn't it? Let's go to VTEC test. So I'm not really familiar with this on the Autel. Now we want to go here. I want to position the solenoids and see that we get cam position accordingly. Let's go here. So we're not going to be, so this is useless. I'm not going to be able to get data on this. I don't think I can even do this test running. Let's see what happens here. This is not, even with this, I'm not going to get the live data that I want to show that my cam timing is proportionate to the solenoid activation. So this may be useless. Let's just do what it says. Okay, we can command these. All right, well, I heard one of the solenoids just click as soon as I started this up. Yeah, you can hear the solenoids click on and off. Yeah. Now, the problem is that doesn't tell me anything. We've got tons of videos where I've done solenoid controls, and even then we're only doing it on bank 1 right here. We've got tons of videos with solenoids that click, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting activation of whatever the solenoid's doing. In this case, we have no evidence that we've got change in oil pressure through the solenoid because the engine is off. So this is actually kind of useless right now. What I can tell you is I did do this with Auto Ingenuity. The one thing also is we will have coming up soon on Schrodinger's Box QM a diagnosis and understanding basic series on understanding variable valve timing, understanding the data that we would look at on the scan tool to determine that variable valve timing is working. We've got all of that coming up soon. This will not be the vehicle to do that on, though, because this vehicle does not have a VVT issue. Although I can't prove it here, of course. So sorry about that, but I'm not going to waste time on that. I've already done it, and I don't want to just get another scan tool just to show you what I already know. What else can we do here? Nothing useful. All right, well, again, my apologies. Obviously, I would love nothing better than to walk through every single thing that I have done and how to do it and all that, but we've got other videos for it. It would take me hours to do that with filming and everything, and unfortunately just don't have that kind of time. The one thing that I think I will do is maybe some of the easier ones, and one of the variables, obviously, would be compression. Also, regarding the compression, I do want to revisit the compression and this time get a metric on the compression. Previously, I just did relative compression, but I actually want to get quantitative compression and see if I can get any other indication towards my hypothesis that this car has type of timing issue. I believe particularly the valve timing, either, as I was saying before, maybe worn camshaft lobes, something is what I was thinking along that lines. Since then, I did a little bit of research and have found that, much to my surprise, this car, despite being a 2012, still requires valve adjustment. I actually just learned this like a week ago, that valve adjustment is required even on these 2012s. I thought valve adjustment was a thing that ended before I even started doing cars 10 years ago, honestly. But yeah, this car, the owner's manual recommends a valve adjustment. That would totally explain this situation. It fits my theory of a timing issue and also can explain the rich condition. The other thing we might expect is a little bit lower compression, probably because of the valve timing changed and opening earlier or later, affecting possible compression. So maybe if we do a quantitative compression, we'll see the compression is a little bit low. It probably will still be within spec, of course, but maybe we'll find it to be just a little bit low as a result. I don't know. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we can get over to what I do believe is going to show us the issue, and we can do some in-cylinder pressure diagnostics and prove that we do have some type of valve timing issue that may be causing the symptoms here. All right, I just had to show you this. You cannot make this up. Setting up for my compression test here, all I want to do is just disable the ignition and look at this. The prop rod, you actually can't remove. There it goes. Like seriously, why? Why? You're only going to access this if the hood isn't, never mind. All right, well, I don't know if this is anything here, but there's a fuse just laying here. It's a good fuse. I don't know if that's just an extra or what, but I'm not sure what the deal is with that. It's probably just some kind of extra fuse or something. Looks like I can just put that maybe in here to keep that handy for a second. And then I believe looks like this is going to be my ignition fuse here. All right, let's take a look. All right, a little bit of a ugly pattern here, I agree, but the bottom line is that we can see from the amplitudes here that we do not have a compression problem on this car, at least as far as relative compression. So that is no one cylinder is missing or anything. You could also hear that in the cadence with the starting. So what I am more interested actually in would be kind of a traditional compression test, because as I've shown in a video over on my paid channel, there are some tricks you can do looking at compression to determine timing problems. That is not something I have actually done on this car. I've only looked at my relative compression, and I am satisfied that we don't have a relative compression issue here. So let's set up for a regular compression test real quick. I just wanted to show you the spark plug here. You can see it's not all covered in oil and everything like that. So not valve guides leaking or anything that typically can cause rich condition, especially at higher RPM like that. So also remember, these spark plugs were replaced probably like a little over 2 years ago, actually. The car isn't really driven that much, but it still looks relatively new. So it's not so much like I'm reading these spark plugs and determining a direction. I'm just kind of eliminating one as a result of looking at this. Let's go ahead and get our compression test done here. So we really just need one cylinder because we know all the cylinders are pretty identical. And what I'm looking here for is not so much the amount of compression, it's going to be more the pattern of buildup. All right, so we got a compression reading of 150. We know that's going to be the same for all the cylinders from the relative compression test. But I'm more interested not so much in that value, but in sort of the cadence of building up to that value. It's totally subjective, absolutely subjective. My opinion, it felt like it took an abnormal number of pulses to build up to the maximum compression, sometimes indicative of timing problem, but there is a great amount of variability between engines that way. You can't really draw too much on that. I think it's kind of favoring in the direction I'm going. I did look up compression. All I have is a minimum spec. 135 PSI is the minimum spec. Obviously, we're above that. It would be helpful to know the maximum spec, and if we're just a little bit low on that side, I don't have that data. So what do we do now? I've spent hours already diagnosing the vehicle to no avail. We at least haven't changed parts and everything like that. We've got some ideas what isn't the problem. I have one idea what is the problem, but the issue is that taking that road would be hours, because we have to remove the intake manifold on this car to get to the valve covers, and we've got to remove the valve covers. We have to check the valve lash and look at the cam lobes and things like that. We're talking a lot of investment, and how do I do that when I offer free diagnostics, right? So do I spend hours further going down this road that we've got, really kind of not so strong evidence on? What do I do? Do I charge the customer and say, well, here's the thing. I need to spend a couple of hours to tear apart the engine and look and see if anything is wrong. And if I don't find anything wrong, I have to charge you anyway. I am not going to do that. maybe I do find something wrong and we say, okay, well, we need to do a valve adjustment. Maybe I can make that excuse, hey, you need a valve adjustment anyway, and go ahead and do that, and that justifies my diagnostic. But then the valve adjustment doesn't fix the problem. Maybe it doesn't need a valve adjustment, and I don't find that out until I'm 2 hours in. What do you do here in this situation? So that is the reason why I decided to learn the pressure in-cylinder pressure diagnostics, because what I can do now is just spend another 5 or 10 minutes. I've already got a spark plug out even. I can just spend a very short period of time, do some research, do some diagnostics on the pressures, and get a much better indication if I'm on the right path wanting to tear into this engine and look at the valve adjustments. So now it makes sense why that pressure transducer was such a good investment. So I think, given what I have here, we're going to go ahead and do in-cylinder pressure diagnostics and see if we're on the right track with there being something with the timing causing the issue on this car. All right, well, this is it. I am down to my end of my rope here. If this shows to be normal, then quite honestly, I really do not have another direction. It's also the reason why I'm going in direction of some issue with the timing, because I have literally nothing else to go on. And again, even though the timing shows accurate, again, I'm using reported measures for that, not actual valve positionings for it. The valve positionings can be irrelevant of the cam sprockets, obviously, where your cam and crank sensor detection would come from. I do know for a fact that those are aligned. It doesn't necessarily mean that what's happening between your sensors is mechanically sound, and that is the direction that we are going. There is nothing else that I can really do. Let's go ahead and get this going. First of all, let me make sure I've got my settings reasonable here. Okay, I think that should be good. Let's stop that and let's analyze our data. Okay, let's go ahead and analyze our data here. First thing I want to do is let's preset some partitions here for the cylinder positions. And let's zoom into a 720 degree. Get this guy out of the way. Yeah, I think that should be plenty of detail there. All right, so we want to bring in top dead center compression right about there, I believe. I'm going to assign that as a 0 degree point. And then let's bring in another one at 720 degrees with our top dead center and bottom dead center positions right there. So because that's completing 2 revolutions of the crankshaft, we of course have 720 degrees. So that means the 180 degree will be bottom dead center from the power stroke. Then of course our exhaust stroke, top dead center exhaust at 360 obviously makes sense, and 540 at the bottom dead center prior to the compression stroke. All right, and let's draw in a little more detail here, although I can tell you right here, I do believe we may be on the right track now, because it does look here like we have possibly an advance on the exhaust timing, perhaps. The reason I think that is because if we look here, this is going to be atmospheric, because we've of course got our exhaust valve opening. The problem I'm having is that it looks like we have reached atmospheric prior to bottom dead center being achieved on the piston, meaning that we've opened a bit early there. Let's see if we can possibly confirm that. One of the things I want to do is draw in a line here for atmospheric. That's about as close as I can get to atmospheric there. Let's bring in another line here. We're going to have to detail in on this a bit more. We're going to bring in a line here for where our exhaust valve must have opened. And of course, we're on our power stroke here, so we are going to be in negative pressures here. So at the point where that negative pressure stops, that must of course be the result of exhaust valve opening, so that we are stopping that negative pressure trend. And let's see if we can find that point. I'm going to pull in another marker here for our bottom dead center, because that's a fixed point, and we need to add a measurement here. Okay, so let's see here. It looks like about, to me, about at that point right there. And yeah, it's a little bit hard to tell there. Let's zoom in a bit more. Yeah, I actually believe we've got it pretty nailed in there. So we're at about, 42, maybe 43 degrees prior to bottom dead center, that we've got the obvious opening of that exhaust valve starting. And here's my issue, is that I've looked up a previous spec, and from what I can find, that should be somewhere around 50 degrees. So we are apparently quite a bit below that. Let's move to 50 degrees. And it's very obvious we don't have opening of the valve yet. We're still trending towards the negative pressures there. So there is no question about it. There seems to be an advance on that exhaust timing. Let's get out of this, and we can also look at the intake timing, although I wasn't able to find information on the intake specification. Zoom in on this a bit more. Okay, so if we look over here, we can pull in my cursor here, and we've got some overlap between the intake and exhaust here. So we've got exhaust valve closing. Looks like right about probably here we've got our intake open with the exhaust closed, because that's where our transition happens. So we must have closed the exhaust valve totally, so we're done with our exhaust valve overlap. We've now got an intake stroke. And if we bring that to our bottom dead center of our intake stroke, we get a value here of about 142 degrees. Now, my only problem is I don't have a specification for that. So I'm not quite sure on the intake, but I am pretty comfortable that I don't like where that exhaust is happening. I also have another thing that I pulled from, I think it's a Wells Engineering, and we've got a known good that we can look at here. Okay, so if we've got the known good, you can clearly see that we are definitely off target. Here we've got bottom dead center exhaust stroke, and you can see that we still are before atmospheric pressure at bottom dead center. We got about 50 degrees as I had indicated earlier. Let's look back at what I pulled. Looking at my data, we are clearly bottom dead center pretty well after that. For me, this is sufficient evidence that I am on the right track, that it is valve timing, as I said, some kind of timing issue. I now know that most likely it is going to be a valve timing issue, because there is valve adjustment on this car. Go figure. But I am pretty comfortable that that is why we are having this situation. So what I'm going to do is, this justifies me doing the valve adjustment. I am going to charge the customer for doing the valve adjustment. But if after finishing the valve adjustment, we don't return to specification that I expect on our valve timing, and of course, without saying, if I don't see a reversal of the rich condition on the engine, then I'm going to swallow it, and the customer gets a valve adjustment for free because it didn't fix what I am trying to fix. So let's get a valve adjustment done.